So, Boker Tov, good morning on this fine Sunday morning as we're about to learn some more Torah. And I will say off the bat that my title this morning is mischievous, to say the least. It's mischievous. Why is this stars on it? I don't know what that's supposed to mean. But I don't know, something looks weird about the something that's showing up here on the screen, but I hope all goes well. So the title of the class, I want to say right away, is mischievous, and so please forgive me, because I am not going to tell you whether you should vote for Harris or you should vote for Trump. Not going to do that. Not going to say that. I have given a class in the past, in general, how and what should make you decide how to vote. I'm not going to do that today. Today, I just couldn't control myself. I couldn't control myself since everybody is so hyped up about the elections. And I do have a beautiful Dvar Torah to share. I said to myself, let me use the title of who you should vote for so that more people hear Torah. I readily admit it's what they call clickbait. So first, let's start the class, and I'm giving Torah. So if you don't like my mischievous shtick today, you could turn off the class right now, because I'm telling you that who you should vote for, the answer will surprise you. But here, let me put in a little tzedakah so that we bring forth blessing for today's class. Let me start with the bracha on the delicious coffee here. Let me show. The person who got me this cup is very proud of the cup he got me because it has my name. So in appreciation for his little gift, I'm going to show you the cup. Abraham, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dvaro. Okay. So as you know, I am very careful over here, regardless of what my personal opinions are, not to discuss politics, because people come here not to hear politics for the most part. They come here to hear Torah. So I do not want to alienate any Jew from studying Torah. You could hear politics by day and by night until, as they say in Yiddish, bis sie kriegt heraus vom Nose, till it's coming out of your nose. You could hear politics all over the place. Here is for Torah study. So today we will study Torah, and I will answer the question who you should vote for, but it'll be different than what you think. So let's leave it at that. Okay. So I want to start with a story. And again, I want to say very clearly, if you don't like my mischievous title and my Torah class today, you could express your upsetness by leaving this class right now. But I think you should stay because it's a beautiful class and it's a beautiful Torah insight, and I'm excited to share it. So there's a story. There's a story with a senior Chabad colleague, rabbi. He's already deceased. He's in heaven. But he was a well-respected Chabad shaliach, a Chabad rabbi in New Haven, Connecticut. His name was Reb Moshe Yitzchak Hecht. Some of you listening to the class might even know who he is. I mean, the Hecht family is a known family in the world of Chabad. There was 4 or 5 brothers, all very special individuals. And today there's many great-grandchildren of these 5 brothers. And one of them was Reb Moshe Yitzchak Hecht, who was the shaliach, the Chabad rabbi, the head Chabad rabbi in New Haven, Connecticut. He was already sent there during the life of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, in probably the late 40s, I would say, probably, late 1940s. And then he continued to be a shaliach, an emissary of Chabad, under the leadership of the Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And in 1974, he was having a very, very difficult time in the world of, in his world of making sure to run the institutions of Chabad and so on. And he wrote a letter to the Rebbe saying, look, I'm going through difficulties. I don't, there's problems. Perhaps, he wrote a letter to the Rebbe, it's time to pick somebody that is should be there in my place. Maybe the Rebbe should send someone else to take over my place. And this was the Rebbe's answer. I'm going to read it in Hebrew, and I will translate. The Rebbe's response to him was the following: "Terem yikrov ani ena." This is a quote from the prophets. "Terem yikrov ani ena." Before we even reach out to God, before we even call, God says, and I respond. So here the Rebbe is sort of borrowing that terminology, which is Terem Yikro. Before you even reached out to me to find somebody to replace you, I have already done so, and I'm responding. And this is what the Rebbe continues and says like this: Mikvara sisi ka'atzos. I already have done as he suggested, and I sent somebody to replace you. Rav Moshe Yitzchak Hecht is writing to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says, I sent somebody to replace you. And the Rebbe continues, who did I send to replace you? I sent a person by the name of Moshe Yitzchak Hecht. And it seems like from the answer from the question that you're asking and suggesting that you cannot handle the burden that you have not yet met, that you, Moshe Yitzchak Hecht, have not yet met my suggested replacement, Moshe Yitzchak Hecht. You do not know all the strengths and powers that he has. It would be a good idea that you should meet him. And once you meet him, all your issues will be resolved in terms of replacing you as the next Rabbi Shaliach. Essentially, what the Rebbe was saying to him, as we could understand, the Rebbe was saying, you haven't met yourself. You don't recognize the great qualities that you have, the great strength that you have. When you meet your strength, you'll realize all the wonderful achievements that you could still achieve, including overcoming this particular hardship that you're discussing. And at that point, you will be successful. And Reb Moshe Yehuda Hecht went on to be the Chabad emissary for many, many years to come, building and broadening and doing so much good over there in New Haven. Why do I bring this story? I bring this story for the following. It is connected to Parshat Noach, where we've just read about the flood. And I want to particularly focus in on a Rashi, as how Rashi explains a statement in the Torah. And that will also address the question that we asked in the title. And since new people have joined over here to class, I want to tell you it's a mischievous title. It is a grabber to grab you to hear some Torah. I'm not going to get involved in politics. Okay, I might state that one or two more times throughout the class. Now, what is the part of the Torah that I want to focus on with a beautiful, powerful lesson? And at the end, by the way, lest you're upset with me for using clickbait, I have a beautiful story to share at the end of this class. You're not going to be disappointed. A beautiful, meaningful story, inspiring story. Let's go to the Torah. The Torah says like this: Vayavo Noach. We all know the basic story of the flood. God was upset. Man became so corrupt, and God says to Noach, "You should build a teva. You should build an ark." And when Noach concludes the ark and he's ready to go in, the Torah uses a strange expression. It says, "Vayavo Noach el hateva b'pnei mei hamabel." Noach entered the teva because of the waters of the flood. Now, on the most straightforward level, it is, okay, because of the flood, he entered into the teva. You know, who wants to live in a teva for a year? Who wants to live in an ark for a year? So the Torah says he went into the ark, but Rashi is bothered. Rashi, who answers all the questions on a more straightforward level that bothers us when we are learning the text of the Torah. So Rashi says this expression, that he entered into the teva because of the waters of the flood, seems to be superfluous, extra, like it's unnecessary. Why is the Torah telling us this expression that Noah entered into the ark because of the waters of the flood? Obviously. So Rashi tells us the following, okay? And I always like to use the words of our holy sages, the words of our Torah. So a little Hebrew can't hurt, a little holy language can't hurt. I will read the words and I will translate. Okay? Af Noach miktane amona hoya. Noach was also from the small believers. Okay? His belief was diminished, was lacking. And then he uses the following expression: Mamin ve'enei mamin sheyaveh mabul. He believed and he didn't believe. Whether the mabul will actually come. V'lo nichnas lateva, and he didn't enter into the ark, into the teva, which is the Hebrew word for ark, the Torah's description of teva, which literally means a box. Ad shedachku hamayim, until the water pushed him or forced him to go in, that he had no choice, he had to enter. So, taking the words of Rashi at its straightforward understanding, is Noach doubted. He wasn't sure whether the flood would actually come until he had no choice, and he entered into the mabul. Okay, that's the Rashi. I hope it's clear. I hope you're still standing with me over here. You're still following. L'chaim. So, here's the question that commentaries ask. And like every part of the Torah, there's so much commentary. So for you, the listener, and for me, if you have extra time on your hands, I want to tell you something. There is an infinite amount of Torah that you could study, and it's amazing and it's beautiful. So, what does this mean that Noach doubted? He spoke to God directly. He spent the last 120 years building the ark. What does this mean? Noach wasn't sure. He didn't believe that when God spoke to him. He just, you invest 120 years. And not only that, miraculously, all the animals are coming to the teva. He sees miracles before his eyes, and he still doubts, and it's raining. But it wasn't yet raining completely for him to think that it's a flood. He doubts that God is going to do what God told him to do. I mean, was geht dafar, as we say in English. What's going on over here? There must be a deeper insight over here. Again, multiple commentaries, but there's one commentary from the Tiferet Shlomo Adams, which is a beautiful commentary and has a lot of meaning. And we're gonna expand upon that based on a Kabbalistic mystical insight from the Arizal, which has to do with the concept of reincarnation. And yes, Judaism believes in reincarnation, but not necessarily how it's portrayed in other approaches, but yes, there is a basic belief of reincarnation. So we have a lot to share over here. So this is what the Tiferet Shlomo, Reb Shlomo Radomsker, says the following. He says, of course, Noach believed. Let me step back for a second. There's really a second question over here. The term that Rashi uses is mamin ve'enim mamin. He believes, but he doesn't believe. Translated is that he sort of believed. He wasn't sure. But, every expression in Torah is exact. What does this mean? Mamin ve'enei mamin. He believes and he doesn't believe. The earlier expression, miktani hamuna, he was small in his belief, seems to describe that already. What's this mamin ve'enei mamin? In the most literal sense, it would mean he believed and yet at the same time he didn't believe. So what does that mean? So this is what Rav Shlomo says. He says something very beautiful that's also based on a known critique, sort of Noach, which is mentioned in the context of other discussions as well. The Mabul is referred to in the prophets. It's the Haftorah that we say during the Parshat Noach. We refer to the Mabul, to the flood, as Mei Noach, the waters of Noach. Why is it referred to as the waters of Noach? Waters were the waters of God, the waters of the flood. Why Mei Noach? Various explanations. But here, one of the explanations given is the reason why it's called Mei Noach is because Noah bear some responsibility for the flood. How so? He was righteous. The Torah clearly states that Noach was a tzaddik, was a righteous man, which even makes the question stronger that what does it mean Noach didn't believe? When the Torah itself testifies Noach was ish tzaddik, he was a righteous man and walked with God. So what's going on over here? And why would it be called Mei Noach, as putting some sort of blame on Noach? It's like when somebody gets credit or someone gets blamed for something, you attach that person's name to that issue. Like you call it Obamacare because he was the one who pushed through the healthcare system, or many other things that happen in life. When someone is associated with it, it's to either complement or the other way around. So why would it be called Mei Noach? Because Noach bears some responsibility. Why? Because he did not pray enough for God to be forgiving of the generation. Had he prayed enough, either it is possible that the flood would have been canceled, or at least minimized, and less death and so on. In contrast, for example, to Avram Avinu, Abraham, the first of our forefathers, when God said that I'm about to turn over Sodom, right? Sodom and Gomorrah, Avram challenges God, and he prays and he asks, perhaps they are righteous people, right? But Noach says, okay, I'm your servant. So therefore he is sort of blamed to some extent, and the waters forever are called Mei Noach, the flood of Noach, the Mabel of Noach. But here the question, says Reb Shlomo, in explaining what's going on over here, why is it, if Noach is such a righteous man, and the right thing for him to do was to protest and ask God to forgive his generation, why is it that he did not protest? And here he answers this beautiful answer. And he explains the Rashi, the words, Ma'amin ve'eno ma'amin. He believed and he didn't believe. So listen to this. Very insightful. He says, Ma'amin means he believed in God. 100,000,000% he believed in God. He believed in God. He was a ish tzaddik. The Torah says he was a righteous man. Et Elokim b'talech Noach. What is ve'enoi ma'amin? It doesn't believe. It's talking about a different. It's applied to a different category, so to speak. Ve'enoi ma'amin. He did not believe in himself. He believed in God to the utmost, but he thought, I Noach, who am I to protest? Who am I to challenge God's decree? Who am I? I'm so small. I'm just a nobody. How could I pray on behalf of my generation? I am, as we say in Yiddish, I'm a garnished, I'm a nobody. Ve'enoi ma'amin means he didn't believe enough in himself. He believed in God 100%. Ve'enoi ma'amin didn't believe in himself. And that's why he had to enter mipnei mei hamabul. That's why he had to enter because of the waters of the Mabul. Because he didn't believe in himself, and therefore he did not stand up to the Almighty and ask the Almighty to go ahead and forgive his people. Let's delve into this a little further. And maybe by now you could understand my disappointing answer, yet important answer, and who you should vote for. We'll get to that. We live in a time where sort of self-esteem and what's good for me, and I got to stand up for myself, is very important. It's a whole generation that grew up this way, especially in the Western world for the last 40, 50 years, 30 years. At first glance, believing in God, religion, minimizes you. God is great. It's all about God, and I'm nothing. What am I? I'm a nobody. I'm nothing. Self-confidence, self-esteem means I got to do what feels good for me, what's right for me. I have to have a healthy ego. I have to go into college and study and get a degree and live life, etc., etc. But the truth is, and sadly, the development in Western society in the last 30 years, and there's many qualities of Western society. This is not trying just to knock Western society, but every system and every way of life needs to be checked so that we only bring out the best in it. The opposite has been proven. When a person believes in themselves because God believes in them, because I have a purpose, then their self-greatness is infinite in a sense, because God says, I do not create spare parts, and you are here for a reason, and you have a purpose, and that which you come in contact and relationship are the things where you have to have impact, and therefore I invest in you talents and strengths and abilities. Don't waste it. You matter. You matter infinitely, because what you need to do, nobody else could do. Otherwise, you would not have been brought over here. I want to use an expression by the famous tzaddik, Reb Tzaddik of Lublin, says the following. Kishem shetzarich ha'odam lahamin b'Hashem, just like a person has to believe in God, kach tzarich achar kach lahamin b'atzmai. So after he establishes his belief in God, he has to believe in himself. So I ask you the question, who should you vote for in the context of this discussion and Parsha, and staying away from politics? And I will direct you. Look up one of my classes in the past on YouTube, and so when you'll see I've given certain guidelines of voting in general. But in today's discussion, I want to tell you the following. Who should you vote for? You should vote for yourself. You should vote for your children. You should vote for your family. That's who you should put your true belief in. One of the reasons why a person doesn't achieve all that they're meant to achieve while they're in this world, one of the reasons that our kindalach, our children, don't achieve what they need to achieve, one of the main reasons that our students don't believe is because we don't infuse them with enough belief in themselves. And when that belief in themselves comes, because it's coming from after having a belief in God, it's so much more powerful, because otherwise, who says your belief is right and justified? But when we know, as Reb Tzaddik says, first you believe in Hashem, and then you take that belief and you say, God believes in you. He's given you purpose. He's given you, my child, purpose. He's given you talents. There's no stopping you for what you are meant to do and achieve. There's no greater self-confidence than that. I want to continue. We'll get back to this point. There's a beautiful Arizal. The Arizal gives us, the Arizal is one of the fathers of Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism. And he tells us the following teaching. Listen to hear this Torah insight. After the Jews sinned with the forbidden sin, the Arizal reveals to us, I cannot tell you these secrets because I don't know the inner secrets of the soul. But the Arizal does. The Arizal of Yitzchak Luria, when I went to Tzvat now in the summer to visit, there was almost a ghost town, unfortunately, because of what's going on in the north. But I went over there to Tzvat, to the old city, and over there you have the synagogue of the Arizal, the Holy Ari, and other great Kabbalists. And the Arizal says, he has a sefer called Sefer HaGilgulim, the book of reincarnation. The Arizal says that Moses, the greatest of all teachers, is a reincarnation and came about to rectify this sin of Noach, this shortcoming of Noach. And he says the following, because everything is alluded to in the Torah. The Torah, 5 books of Moses, is like a code that there's so much that you could uncover there, but you need to be a righteous, holy man like the Arizal to uncover some of this stuff. So he says like this, after this, the cardinal sin of the Jewish people after they received the Torah was the golden calf. And over there, Moses, after God says to Moses, I will destroy the people and will make a great nation from your offspring, Moses, unlike Noach, because he's here to rectify Noach's passivity, Moses says to God, I protest. And he says to God that you have to forgive the Jewish people. And then he uses this term, Ve'im ayin, and if you're not going to forgive the children of Israel, Mocheni no, erase me please from the book that you've written, erase me from the Torah. Which to Moses, whose whole life was Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe our teacher, because he gave us the Torah, to then challenge God and say, if you're not going to forgive, then erase me, that's bold. That seems like chutzpah. That seems almost unrighteous. Arizal says, everything is alluded to in the Torah. Why does Moses pick this challenge? Macheni na, erase me. Says the Arizal the following. First of all, the word macheni, erase me, is the same words. If you rearrange the letters, macheni, mem, chet, nun, yud, if you rearrange the letters, is Mei Noach, the waters of Noach. Where did Moshe take the audacity, so to speak, to challenge God? Is from the Mei Noach, from the story of the flood, says the Arizal. In fact, the words Macheni No, actually, the words Macheni No, erase me please. If you rearrange those letters, it's Minoach Ani. I, says Moses, I am from Noach. My soul is connected and is here to rectify the shortcomings of Noach. And interestingly enough, why specifically erase me? Because by Noach, what was the punishment for Noach's lack of prayer, which he should have done? Is it says in the parasha, Vayimachas kol hayikum, God erased all of creation. Whereas Moshe Rabbeinu says, if you're not going to forgive the people based on my challenge and prayer, which is the reason you brought my soul down here again to rectify Noach's lack of prayer, then Macheni, the same words, Vayimach, he erased the entire creation. Moses says, Macheni, erase me. And interestingly enough as well, Moses, the Torah testifies, was the humblest of all men. This is where the beautiful contrast comes in, that when you are the most humblest, because, why are you humble? Why was Moses humble? Because he was, as the Torah testifies, he was a servant of Hashem. The more connected he was to God, the more humble he was, and the more he believed in himself, in what he had to do, that he was ready with all that it takes to challenge God, because he knew that within him there's a soul of God, and because he knew that God has a mission for him. That gave him the greatest, holiest, not corrupt, holiest, not selfless self-confidence. A person who has that kind of humility, true humility, has true self-confidence. I mean, I saw this in real life by my holy Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. There was nothing that was there for himself. He was totally 24/7 dedicated to the cause. And yet he was as strong as can be when something was morally right, whether it was Israel, whether it was whatever it might be, Torah, right, helping somebody. There was no pressure that he would buckle under. Because it wasn't a personal, egotistical thing. It was because he was so batel, he was so humble to the cause, to his soul, to God's will. Which is why the Rebbe was the leader of our generation. The letter that he wrote to Rabbi Hecht was how the Rebbe operated with every human being that came before him. I don't want to get too carried away with this, because that's not the main point, but there's many times we discussed it. The Rebbe made a human being, any human being that came his way, the Rebbe really made them feel and connect to their inner strengths, which gave a person such true and holy and powerful confidence to fulfill what needs to be done. So my answer to the question, which for those who are not too disappointed as I use the title as clickbait, the answer to the question, as I might have already mentioned in my discussion over here, is who should you vote for? Vote for yourself. I want to tell you a story. I said I'm gonna towards the end I'm gonna tell you a story. It's a very beautiful story. It's also a sad story, but it's a beautiful story and a meaningful and inspiring story. Here it's a story about somebody dealing with a flood and did stand up and did believe in themselves, meaning believe in what they can achieve, and as a result brought about a tremendous positive result. Let me tell you this story. There was a Jew, his name was Reb Naftali, his name was Reb Shlomo Halberstam. For those who know the Hasidic circles, Reb Shlomo Halberstam was the Rebbe of a very large Hasidic group called Bobov. Bobov, a group It's primarily centered in Borough Park, Brooklyn, and it's a very prestigious, large Hasidic dynasty. Reb Shlomo Halberstam, who has already passed away, I think it's his grandson that's now the Baba Rebbe. Reb Shlomo Halberstam was a Holocaust survivor. He went through the Holocaust through one of the camps. I believe it was Auschwitz. He lost his entire family. I believe he even lost many of his children. He survived the war just with his one child, Reb Naftali. Naftali Halberstam was the only child that survived from his immediate family. And he finally made it in 1946. He made it to the shores of the United States, and he joined another Hasidic synagogue led by a fellow called the Sosaver Rebbe. And he joined the synagogue in East New York. Those who know, the Manhattan area, the East Side, where they had all those delicious barrels of sour pickles. For my fellow New Yorkers, you could give us a thumbs up for that. Anyway, everything was totally justified after going through that horror for him to just retire, sit there, do his thing, and so on, and just live life quietly. But Reb Shlomo knew that there were tens and thousands of Jews who were in the DP camps that were cold and they were hungry and they were not properly taken care of and wanted to immigrate to the United States, country of kindness. But because of laws of immigration and because of many difficulties that were being placed over here in this country, they didn't want to have all those refugees here. They were being denied entry. Reb Shlomo could not rest. He could not rest. And the matter came up in Congress. There was a congressman, or the Senate, not sure, Senate or congressman, and there was a fellow by the name of Mr. Bergson, who was actually trying to help. And the person who went out against him and in war to stop and not allow the refugees was like a stickler for the law. And his name was Saul Bloom. With a name like Saul Bloom, you guessed it, a fellow Jew, a member of the tribe, as they say. So Reb Shlomo, a simple, Jew here in this country who survived the war with, at that time, no following, nothing, heard that this Saul Bloom was making a trip to New York. He says, you know what, I'm gonna meet with him. But he was told by one of his secretaries, one of his assistants, that you could only meet him in his office in Washington. He said, fine, I'll travel to Washington. So they said you could only meet him. He has a very busy schedule in 6 months for 5 minutes. I said, fine, I'll take what I can get. 6 months, he travels to Washington. He shows up a few minutes before 9 a.m. when his appointment was set. And nobody's really paying attention to him, especially then. A Jew with a beard and payas and a yarmulke was much more of a rare sight in the United States in general, and especially in Washington, D.C. And he's waiting, 10 o'clock. People are coming, people are going. Finally, at 11 o'clock, the assistant comes out and says, you can enter. But I would like to remind you, you only have 5 minutes. The senator's time is very precious. He has 5 minutes to see him. Reb Shlomo walks in. The senator doesn't even look at him. And he says to him, what's your name? Reb Shlomo knew that if he's just going to go through the niceties, this is my name, where you're from, where this, all that kind of stuff. By the time he's finished, his time will be over, and gig is unterheit, have a nice day. So he knew he has to grab his attention. He says to Saul, who is a stickler for the law, he says to him, you know who I am? I'm a lawbreaker. I break the law. This grabbed Saul's attention. Looks up and he says, what do you mean? He says, I'll tell you what I mean. Where I come from, the law was that if you were placed in Auschwitz or some other concentration camp, the law was that you're not allowed to leave or run away into the forest. Where I come from, the law was that you're not allowed to help someone else that's being sent to the death camps. The law was that not only are you not allowed to help, but you have to report to the authorities if you see someone else or you know someone else is planning to run away. I am a lawbreaker. I broke the law. I managed to escape. I managed to help others to escape. And at this point, Reb Shlomo says he broke down in tears and he looked up to Saul Bloom and he saw tears coming out of his eyes. And he said to Saul Bloom, I want you to help me. I want you to help the tens or hundreds of thousands of those who want to come here rather than die in starvation or from malnutrition or from lack of proper care. I want you to help me. And Saul was moved. And Saul said, I'll do whatever I can. And he helped. He helped. He even broke the law where he issued papers and made sure papers were issued even when it wasn't exactly according to the law. So here was a Jew, Reb Naftali Halberstam, who believed in himself, but he believed in himself because of the holy mission that he had. He didn't say, I'm so small, what am I going to do, go Washington, fight City Hall, fight Uncle Sam. He put in the effort during the time of the flood that we experienced during this time. And I want to say today on a level that we're dealing with Israel, and then on a personal level. Dealing with Israel is always accused by the international courts and community that we are breaking the law. We are violating the laws of war. Why? Because we want to survive, we want to exist, we want to have a family, we want to have a meaningful life, we want to help others. We are always violating the law of humanity for the sin of just wanting to be. The Torah says, Mamin ve'eina mamin. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in who we are as a people. You have to believe that we have not only every right to exist, we have a purpose and mission to be a light unto the nations. Not to be apologetic, not to cower, not to say we are too small. Maimin, we believe in God, but ve'eina mamin, we don't believe in who we are. So the other day, a Jewish woman saying, I'm embarrassed to be a Jew based on what Israel is doing. How ridiculous. And then in a personal level, you have to believe in yourself most of the time, or often, for sure. We don't do things that come our way because we don't believe in ourselves enough. If Hashem has sent it our way, it means he believes that we can be successful in that endeavor, in that purpose, in that mission. And we have to believe in our children in a true, real way, not in a superficial way, not in an empty way, not in a, call it a Hollywood way, whichever way you want to, a fluff baloney way, in a real way. We have to ask ourselves, what are my true values? What are my principles? What are my parents' principles? What is my Torah principles? What are my godly principles? And coming from there, then we infuse ourselves, our children, our community, our students, and beyond with that confidence. There's no stopping that confidence, because if Hashem has brought it your way, means he gives you the tools and power. That's real confidence. And that will allow us to combat the forces of the flood, personal, collective, national. This is what we need to do. This is the beautiful message from the Parsha. Vote for yourself, vote for your kindalach in the truest, strongest way. The rest will fall into place. The rest will fall into place. Have a great week. Thank you for listening. a week of blessing. Please share these words of Torah so others could be inspired, uplifted by these words of Torah. Have a great and wonderful and blessed